So look, we have a lot of things that we're gonna talk about, but we do wanna talk about 9/11, obviously. And I wanna start off informally. We have some sad, kooky stuff a little bit later on, but just it's been 18 years, which means that there are people who can vote, people who are serving abroad, who hadn't even been born when it happened, obviously, as many people have acknowledged. And it's like I still remember exactly, as everyone who was old enough at the time, I remember exactly what I was doing, where I was when it happened. I had just gotten to college. I was in a quad. It was like 4 people. It was a big room with a TV. So everyone on the floor, that's where we gathered as it was going on. I remember waking up when the first plane had hit. I saw online news. It was plane crashes into the Trade Center. And I went back to sleep because there were no details, and so I thought it was just a little thing, an accident. That's all. Woke back up 15 minutes later, whatever, and it was this world-changing thing.
Where were you? Which school you said?
I was at UConn. Yeah. What about you?
It was real time because on the West Coast, I'm at home, and I'm in college as well. It's my senior year, and
it's much earlier. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's so much earlier in the day, and then. I didn't have, it was roommates, we didn't have like cable and stuff, so I would listen to the radio when I'd sleep, just music. And then so everything had been preempted, and there was news reports and all this stuff, and it woke me up with the chatter, and it didn't seem real. I was like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Again, it was like, at this point, it's 7, 8 a.m. West Coast time, you know? So maybe 8, 9, and then so it was, I had to go to class that day, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to campus. This isn't gonna work out. And it's just a matter of I think maybe this is the majority of people's reaction was coming to terms that it was real, that's what was actually happening. You hear reporting, like you said, you heard it and you thought, oh, maybe a small plane accident, some inexperienced pilot.
That's what I thought.
Something, right?
Which seems crazy in hindsight.
Right. But those things happen. People have small plane accidents all the time. So you're like, maybe that's what happened, and it just happened in the worst place, in the middle of a metropolitan area. But so when you hear it, and then many people I think have said, once the second plane hit, then people are like, oh man, this is real. Like this is calculated, not just, oh man, this big plane had a huge accident. This was calculated. And then what people do with the rest of their day, rest of their week, and who they call, and what you find out, and then discover who you know that's in the city. All that just went into, and you're in this halfway panic, and you think, where else are the targeted things happening right now? This is a targeted thing. Yeah. So when you're in big cities like LA, New York, Chicago, wherever, Miami, you may think, what else is coming here? Yeah. That was the main thing that happened during that day.
Yeah, and obviously there was more going on outside of New York on that day. And look, there have been any number of horrific attacks since then. Horrific mass shootings, attacks with cars, bombings. Look at Afghanistan. On any given month, there's a terrible attack. But there's still, in the 18 years, there hasn't been anything to match it. And it's weird that there are people who are growing up, in the world after it, where it's like a thing that you read about, I guess. And yet it's one of the most historic events. So just how terrible it actually was.
And so I think we have to relay for people who, of all those of us that lived it and had the real experience of the feeling surrounding it, because we didn't have those. I don't have those real lived experiences with civil rights era and tragedies that happened then, other wars we've been involved in.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of times us older folks' responsibility to make sure that people who didn't experience it understand the gravity of it and how it played out afterwards.
Yeah.
In reality, because we complain about how things we never lived through or experienced in history with wars, disagreements that we change over and make a bland history of. We're like, yeah, it happened and now everything is great now. No, there's things that are happening today that are a direct result of what happened after that day. And we can go as far back as the beginning of our nation's history. There's things that founding fathers and leaders and presidents and congressional people from way back in the day, from turn of when 1900 turned, that affect today. We can't just not connect everything. So let's not forget, it's 18 years ago. We're already beginning to forget how things happened, who did what, and why we're in the position we're in now, and who is still dying from it.
Yeah, I wonder, like for the books, like if you're really young and you're going to school and there's a section in your book that talks about 9/11, I wonder how much it talks about what happened politically after that, how it was used almost instantaneously to put into effect plans that had already been in existence for certain foreign military actions, the clamping down of rights, the shredding of sections of the Constitution. Like so much we're still only theoretically going to recover from at some point. There was some recovery under Obama in some of those areas, but not in a lot of them. It was just so significant, not just for the day, and then also one thing I just want to mention. I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit here, but I was doing some reading, and officials estimate that more than 2,000 of the first responders who were at ground zero working in the months after it have died since it, because of respiratory illnesses and cancer from the toxic materials that they were forced to breathe in. And officials estimate that at some point in the future, more will have died from cancers and other diseases from the cleanup than died on that day. And so it's just in all of these other ways, there's the tragedy of the day, and then there's the needless tragedies that came about as a result of it. That different factions of our government and negligence on the part of our elected officials decided to heap on top of the tragedy of 9/11.
There's people who went to war and joined the military because of this act, because of what happened that day. And we were just talking earlier this year about how Jon Stewart was touring, honestly, sadly, with these 9/11 responders looking to save their lives because of the things that's gonna happen to them health-wise that weren't being backed up by Mitch McConnell in Congress. You have to go through and do the things to fulfill the promises you made to the people that sacrificed themselves for what happened afterwards. It wasn't just military personnel that went and risked their lives and gave. It's people that day that went in, people that weren't first responders, people that just lived there and maybe had some connection to the city and were there.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about people who said they were there.
Exactly, yeah, we'll turn that in just a sec. Yeah, there's no, the weird thing, it's like, I guess it's a form of cynicism that you have to develop in politics, is that there's no actual red lines. Like things that you think are a line in the sand, things you think, well, clearly no one could ever actually do this. Like if you had gone back on the 9/12 and then said, oh, did you know that it is going to be a monumental effort to try to get health care for the people who are right now digging through the rubble to find survivors and to find bodies? It would have been incomprehensible, and yet that was a big thing. It took celebrity power multiple times now, and hopefully, unless the law changes, it's good for a long time now as a result of the most recent efforts. But yeah, multiple serious politicians who talk about their responsibility to the country and their desire to protect us are like, nah, it costs too much money. You can die of cancer. I honestly don't care. I'm not going to do anything. Like that should. There aren't words, or at least I don't have them to express that. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.